When you think of AI, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Is it Skynet from the Terminator? NPCs? Is it the Matrix? For me, I'm mostly fascinated by its capabilities. I love technology, and it's only going to improve from here on out. AI has proven to be one of those extremely powerful pieces of technology. So in this video, I decided to use it for some educational purposes. I broke this video down into two parts. In my last video, I already tested this concept. I had AI generate a mod list to help improve visual fidelity. I also wanted it to maintain high performance and to maintain the original vision Bethesda had for the game. It did a pretty good job, earning an 8 out of 10 score, which was actually surprising. There were still a number of things that I think it should have had on the list, so therefore, I decided to collaborate with the AI, and that's the first part of the video. During the first part, there will be a side-by-side comparison with the vanilla version, AI version, and our collaboration. I'll also be pointing out the key differences in each scene. In the second part, we're going to release the restrictions of keeping it in Bethesda's image, and we're going to let the AI choose its favorite mods. I'll explain more on the subject as we approach it. Now, as I said before, I've already tested this concept out, so the list I'm going to be using in the first comparison is a combination of both that AI's list and my improvements. Without further ado, let's take a look at the load order, and let's look at the evaluation. Now that you've seen the load order, next we'll see a side-by-side comparison of every version. I'll be pointing out a few key differences between each version. This will help you get a grasp and seeing what's been improved. Let's begin by taking a look at the atmosphere. If we compare AI and the collaboration, you'll see that the AI has a hotter tone to it, meanwhile the collaboration has a colder tone to it. I do like the vibrancy of the AIs, but it definitely washes out the background. With the collaboration, you can see much more detail inside of it. This in my opinion is more realistic, and plus the colder tone stays closest to vanilla, which is why I believe it's the best choice to have for the atmosphere. Again, the same differences with the atmosphere still apply here. Take a look at the towers. If you look at all three comparisons, the collaboration is clearly the most clear one. Try to focus on the details of the mountain. Now, let's look at the sun. As you can see, the sun isn't hiding behind any of the clouds or the atmosphere. The sun in real life doesn't always do that. I mean, it does, but you know what I mean. With the collaboration, you get a better sun and better lens flare. Now we're almost done. Let's move over to some interiors and see what's going on there. Okay, so comparing AI and comparing the collaboration, there's an obvious difference here. Take a look at the lights on the ground. The collaboration is obviously brighter and more vibrant, giving extra detail and extra clarity. Let's look a little bit closer. Take a look at the bucket and take a look at the table. Light reflects and bounces all over the environment, creating the light space that you see. In this scene, the AI doesn't do it properly. Meanwhile, the collaboration does. Look at the difference between the table, the bucket, the basket, and the ceiling. The light coverage is much more improved in the collaboration. Let's take a look at another scene from this room. Look at how the light from the candle actually reflects off the wall. Look at the difference in detail from the smoke. On the collaboration, the light is actually reacting to it. Take a look at the desk. Obviously the AI is much more dimmer. Now in this scene, there's a new light source added to the ceiling, but it seems like the AI's version isn't really activating it. Both vanilla and the collaboration activated the lights, and as you can see, the lights are carrying all the detail for the scene. Pay close attention to all the items on the table and the floor. Let's view the next area of this scene. Same differences, but this time we're going to focus on the bottom of the door. Vanilla doesn't have any fake lights under the door. Meanwhile, the AI has two brighter fake lights, and the collaboration blends them perfectly in my opinion, which to me is more realistic. Again, everything you've heard thus far applies in this scene. We're going to be focusing more on the smaller details. Let's start with the dust particles. Honestly, it shouldn't be that dusty in there, so I just decided to remove it. I think it looks better. That's probably more opinion based, but let's just move on to the candle lights in the background. Comparing the AI and the collaboration, the AI's glow is entirely too bright. Meanwhile, in the collaboration, it's perfectly blended. If you compare vanilla to both of the versions, you can clearly see there's a huge difference in lighting. First, let's look at the front door. In the vanilla version, there's a big window right above it. That's the whole reason why there's a bright light in the middle of the room there. But no one ever looks up there, so it's kind of a detail that shouldn't be there in my opinion. Now, I'm not the only person with this opinion because most lighting mods only focus on the windows that's right next to the front door. Now, let's focus on the AI and the collaboration. If you take a look near the front door, you should see these braziers. The braziers do not reflect on anything around them. Meanwhile, in the collaboration, you can clearly see that the lights are reflecting off the walls and they're even spreading further out through the door. Let's move back a little bit closer to home. If you look at all the fires, you can clearly see that the vanilla version and the AI version have this extremely bright bloom. I didn't like that, so in the collaboration, I decided to get rid of that bloom to make the fire look a bit more realistic. Let's take a look at another part of this scene. Again, same situation here. The major thing I want to point out here is look at the lights in the background. Let's look at the table. Across all the versions, the only one not lighting the table back there is the AI. So in the collaboration, I fixed that. As for dungeons and caves, well, they're a bit too dark to be recorded. So if you don't like dark caves, then that might actually be an issue for you. It all depends on the dungeon or cave that you go to. Not every dungeon or cave is completely dark, but it does make looting much more fun. Bring a torch. This concludes the remastering of Skyrim using AI and mods. And now we get to the most interesting part of this video. Getting AI to go as hog wild as possible. Earlier, the AI had some pretty strict criteria. It was supposed to be vanilla and it was supposed to remaster the game in the vanilla image. This time, we're taking all that away. We're going to have it come up with its own extreme combos. We're going to see if it can actually make the game look good for itself. Forget vanilla, forget Bethesda's image, forget everything. The only thing we're going to have it focus on is pure quality, pure performance, and combining as many mods as possible to reach this goal. Let's see if we can get some really good results. First, we're going to use the 10 category system. This is the same system that the AI used to cover the entire game. The categories are as follow: base fixes and patches, optimized performance mods, texture overhauls, lighting overhauls, weather and environmental enhancements, flora and fauna overhauls, water and snow improvements, NPC and character overhauls, user interface and quality of life mods, final touches and LOD optimization. Let's start with the first category, base fixes and patches. After giving AI its criteria, it began to bring up a combination of mods, all of which fall into the given parameters. Now all that's left is to download each and every one of these mods. The sweet thing is it also gives its own summary at the end, and it even cites a video demonstrating its performance. Let's move on to category 2, optimized performance mods. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to type in the prompts and watch it generate its own combination. Now I found what I was looking for, but it also added way too many different things that I didn't ask for. So we're gonna go without the extra baggage. Moving on to category 3, texture overhauls. This is where things started to get interesting. I like the fact that it took the time to generate as many different textures as it could, mostly because it seems like it won't conflict with each other. So let's add these to the list and move on to category 4, lighting overhauls. This one was the most interesting. I like to use a combination of lighting mods, but only if they're doing something completely different from one another. Based on what I see here, they might be doing the same thing, which could cause conflict, so we'll see if AI is doing a good job on that one. I generally wanted to give you the idea of the process of what I'm doing here, so from here on out, I'm going to skip the next 5 categories and show you what the mod list looks like. Once everything is downloaded, I'm then going to have the AI organize it itself. Here's the load order that the AI has created. If you take a look at the scene here, the first thing you're going to notice is the vibrancy of color. Off of its first looks, it looks like it's going for a summer vibe. If that's the vibe it's going for, I believe having heavily saturated colors is a good choice for it. If you compare the two, the most obvious difference is the flora. First, let's take a look at the grass and the plants. Look at the pink petals. Since it seems like the AI is going for a summer look, it makes much more sense to have more flowers blooming. Moving on down to the ferns, comparing the two, if you take a look at the AI's version, it's much fuller, richer in color, and it helps give off that summer vibe because of that. Now, if we look in the background, look at the trees. Comparing it to the vanilla version, the AI has more trees, larger trees, and longer branches, which can really give off that summer vibe. Now, moving on to the last part of the scene, let's take a look at the textures. Looking at the ground, in the vanilla version, the rocks seem to be painted on the floor versus the AI's version looks like they're all hand placed. It goes without saying, but the hand placed version looks more realistic. Lastly, I want you to take a look at all of the wood. Look at the cart, look at the wall, look at the beam, and look at the wheel. All of the wood that you see in this scene have been replaced with higher quality textures. Moving on to the next scene. No pun intended, but it ain't too much to see here. As a matter of fact, the only thing that you can see is something horrible. Take a look at this light here. Nothing is being illuminated whatsoever. Naturally, due to console limitations, that's something we're all just going to have to deal with. It's impossible to fix that. However, there are definitely mods out there that have light reflecting off trees, plants, and leaves. So the fact that it's not doing that in this scene makes it a terrible choice. That's enough of this scene. This scene here definitely confirms that it was going for a summer vibe. So we can pretty much assume that any scene that's going to be in a place where there's no snow is going to end up being this dark, bright, and vibrant at the same time. Now, if we compare both scenes, there's a clear difference in color palette. Like, look at the water. That rich, vibrant blue really packs a punch in clarity. And then you have those dark and grainy rock textures. The combination of both of those really synergize well together. When it comes to lighting and weathering in this scene, the AI chose a combination that creates the rich and vibrant color palette we're seeing right now. Now, there is one major problem that I do see. If you take a look at the waterfalls, you can clearly see that they're both still the same exact color. Moving on to the next scene. There isn't exactly anything new that we can say here. We can only point out just a couple of differences. Like, one of the major differences is the vanilla is a lot colder looking than the AI version. Though it's snowing in the vanilla version, even if it wasn't, the AI's version would still be much more clear than the vanilla version. Just because one is more clear than the other doesn't actually make it better. I want you to look at the background. In my opinion, the trees out here are entirely way too bright. You can't see it in this example, but trust me, they are way too bright. There's actually plenty of areas where it's way too bright. I think with all the lighting mods and weathers that they stacked together, it ended up causing too many places to be way more brighter than acceptable. Vanilla actually did this in some places too, so if you don't mind that vanilla brightness, then you probably wouldn't really mind this. Moving on to the next scene. For the last half, we're going to be covering interiors. In this scene, I so happened to be standing inside of a god ray. This ended up ruining the footage. However, I wanted to still cover it because there's plenty of god rays in this game. Standing inside of a god ray will cause your scene to look just as bright as this. While under the influence of a god ray, when you compare the two, the bloom is extended. Moving on to the next scene. Let's look at these two images side by side. It's a little hard to tell the difference between the two. If we look up here near the window, the AI's version covers more area. That could mostly be due to the chandelier added to the middle of the room. An added detail is the fact that the chandelier also projects shadows onto the ceiling. You can even see more detail in the door in the background. Moving on to the next scene. The biggest thing you'll notice in this scene is the lighting, the god rays, and the dust particles. If we compare the two scenes, take a look at the general area of the fireplace. The light emitted from the fireplace is projecting shadows from all objects surrounding the fireplace. Taking a deeper look into the fireplace, you can clearly see that there's a brighter bloom. Bloom can work in certain games, but this just isn't one of them. Taking a look up to the top right, you can clearly see there's a bunch of dust particles. Dust particles can enhance the scenery, but they can also be too much for scenery. I think it's a personal taste-based thing, so if you don't like it, then that's going to be an issue for you. If you do like it, then you're going to like it. The point of me bringing it up is the fact that it ends up washing out the scenery a whole lot. One last thing I want you to check out is the actual scenery. I want you to focus on the textures. Look at the chair, look at the fireplace, look at the feathers above the fireplace, look at the floor, and look at the wood. Each one of these have been significantly improved. Moving on to the final scene. There isn't exactly too much of a difference between the last two scenes, so again, I just want you to focus on the textures, the lighting, the foliage, and every other thing that we've been discussing thus far. Comparing the footage side by side is an excellent way to see the differences between the two, but they don't show you the full scope of the game. Unfortunately, it's more ugly than it is good. I'm pretty much just focusing on all the good things that it was showing. But if you take a lap around the world, there's a lot of things that just don't add up. It just does not look good together. So unfortunately, I'm gonna have to say, AI flopped hard on this one. There's a bunch of things that I did like about it, such as the color palette, the stylistic choice of the water, and the mountains. I think those went together pretty well. It's just the fact that everything is too dark. There's a certain color scheme that your textures, your water, your lights, and all that stuff should match in order for it to look good all together, and unfortunately these were entirely too random, so we really didn't get to have the good combination that I was looking for. However, I can say AI did a good job by just putting everything together without it actually destroying the performance of the game. If you enjoyed the video at any moment, or you have something you want to share, feel free to like the video and leave a comment of your thoughts. If you want to see more videos like this, all you gotta do is hit that subscribe button. Until then, see you guys next time.